This isn't a video that I usually make, but today I want to discuss God's existence. I'm sure you heard the title, I'm sure you know what's up. Today, as of August 16th, 2026, I wanted to discuss why I believe there is no God. Now, many people believe in what the scripture says. This came to be like this, etc., etc., etc. And while that may lay true for some, I don't have the faith to believe in that. I can't believe in something written like that. Some book, some story, whatever, passed down upon to me. I struggle to find faith upon those stories that they didn't. I don't believe they happened. And you may say, "Oh, okay. Even if all the stories aren't real, there can be a God without them. There can be a God that isn't the way the Christians propose it, the way the Muslims propose it, the way the Jewish people propose it, whatever religion you may think of. And the God may not be the way any of them suggest it to be. But ultimately, no matter what book no matter what book I'm reading about God or whatever, if you tell me God exists, I wouldn't believe it. And even if God's existence, wasn't determined by the book or a book for the sort, there can still be, there can still be a God without a book saying that there is. And in that case, okay, there is a God, but no one in no book has ever said he was like this. And I look at it and I think to myself, okay, there can be a God, not in this book, but then I think, how? And I start to question myself. I look back, right? By the way, I'm not an expert, but I look back at the beginning and I ask myself multiple questions. I ask, how? Why? Even when? And what? What was the beginning? How did it come to be? Why, if there's a reason, if any? And did I say what? Maybe. There's 4. You know what I'm talking about. And I look back, right, and right now, the most collectively agreed creation of the universe is the Big Bang. Okay, so right now I'm looking at that, right? I'll look at that and I'll say, okay, this thing, right, I'm not an expert, right, basically expanded and then boom, right, whatever. And billions of years go by. Some 4 billion years ago, all that energy, the universe keeps expanding continuously, right? All energy made the sun, and a bunch of dust made all the planets or whatever. Rough summarization of this, by the way. And then Earth came to be, right? With the sun and it's in its habitable zone, whatever. I asked myself, okay, what? That makes sense. Call me crazy, but that is something that could occur. Ask me why. I don't have an answer. Why could this happen? I couldn't tell you why for anything. And religious people like to say, okay, God created us for a reason. Do you want to exist? Or it's not such a word like that. It's God created us for a reason. All right? And they often argue, like, if I present to them, there is no God, they present to me, there is no reason. Maybe I'm summarizing it a bit rough, but That's kind of the general idea. They present to me a God, I say, no. They say, therefore, if you don't believe in a God, you believe everything was made for no reason whatsoever. I'm like, okay. That's basically the point. I don't believe in a God. They say, okay, then therefore you believe nothing was created. There's no reason for our existence. And they say, why would you want to live at all? Why wouldn't you just yourself, And I say this. I say, why does there need to be a reason for our creation? And you're like, maybe you think, okay, right? What is he talking about? For something to exist, there doesn't always need to be a reason for its existence. For example, I don't know, a rock. What reason is the rock? Maybe it builds a road or whatever. It's a part of a path, but most rocks, if you look at them from our lens, have no reason. And sure, right, you can look at it from different lenses. You can always do that. You can always view it from a different perspective. But what gives something a reason in the first place? You say, okay, an eternal God gave us our reason, our purpose. And that's whatever your religion says, right? It's Christianity, it's like to submit to follow the prayers of Jesus or something like that. I could be wrong, not an expert, right? But something has to give you a reason. That's not necessarily true. Or I should say someone. There can be rocks that exist that don't do anything. And we may not know the reason. That doesn't mean that doesn't have one. Does this make sense? If something exists and its reason is unknown, it doesn't mean it doesn't have one. If the universe is created, the why I don't know the reason for, therefore it doesn't mean it doesn't have one. And even if it didn't have one, even if there was no reason for its creation, still, it can still be created for no reason. Things happen randomly all the time. Random things occur all the time. And something popping into existence or whatever you want to call it doesn't need to have a reason to occur. And now you may look at it like, oh no, you really think about it. You really think about it. You think, oh, everything does have a reason. If you look at physics, you could predict certain events with fundamental principles and everything. But then you can question more. You can ask, okay, for what reason do these fundamental principles exist? Like, why is Earth's gravity like 9.8 or whatever? Why, I don't know, why do planets orbit? Like, I don't know, you could think of other stuff, right? Why does heat transfer from hot to low, right? Simple things that make sense, like why would they not, right? But then you think about it deeply and you ask yourself, wait, what's the reason for that? Why isn't fire cold? Even if you question, oh, because the physics behind it, why don't the physics behind it make it cold? There's so much things you can just question. If you just keep questioning things, eventually get something where a reason is just unknown. You keep asking, what's the reason? Why? Eventually, you just won't know. And fire's existence in and of itself. What's the purpose of fire? And you can't tell me it's one thing, right? Purpose can be complex. Fire's purpose doesn't need to be to keep us warm. It can be to destroy something, and its purpose is very complicated. But its reason doesn't necessarily need to be, it doesn't need to be anything. It can just be. It can just exist without reason. Something can exist without reason. And if you think there was a reason or not, we can still be here. I can still talk to you, regardless. So there doesn't need to be a reason for us to exist. You might say, well, that's sad. Why would you want to believe that we exist for no reason? Why would you want to believe that there is no purpose? And in reality, I don't want to believe that. To have no purpose is awful. Why would you want that, right? But then you look at it deeply and you think, okay, why would I not just be religious then? Well, because if you value what you believe is true, right, then you'd value living without a reason, without a purpose, over living in what you believe not to be true, but have a purpose. Let me explain. What you find to be true. For me, what I find true is there is no God. Correct, or right, depending on who you are. I believe there is no God, right? So, that's what I find the truth is. Okay? And disregarding my reasoning, disregarding everything I've said, this is what I believe. You can disregard it for now, right? For now. What I believe, what I said, there's no God, that's what I believe is the truth. And I value what is true. And since I value what is true, I cannot override my truth with something I believe to be false, which is God. So, since I believe there is no God, even if it brings me pain and a purposeless, sad life, which, okay, I'm not saying that is true, but depending on the context, some religious people may impose that point to my statement I'm about to make. If I don't believe a God, I have a sad, purposeless life, okay? Even if that were to be true, which, depending on who you are, you may disagree or agree, I still believe in what I find to be true, which is that there is no God. So, the truth, which it hurts, I don't like the truth here. I want to be, let's say theoretically, I want to be purposeful and happy and have a reason for my existence. But my beliefs, what I think is true, overtakes that. And my truth, or what I believe to be true, makes me not believe in God, or disregard what I said. What I believe to be true overrides the benefits of being religious. Sure, atheism, whatever you want to call it, sucks, right? You know, you're sad, you're lonely, you've no purpose. Why would you ever want to be an atheist? And truthfully, you shouldn't want to be an atheist because, well, things I just mentioned. It's sad, purposeless life. It's a sad, purposeless life. Supposedly. That's what, I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying this is what a sad, purposeless life is, what is imposed, was what sometimes religious people claim atheist's life would be like. I'm saying that, why would you want to be an atheist if it brings you misery, essentially? That's what, you know what I'm talking about. And it's because I value the truth. Now, when I say this, what I mean is, what I find to be true directly overrides my comfort in reality. But in reality, atheism doesn't need to be sad and miserable. You can find your own purpose without a God. You don't need a God to tell you who you need to be, who you want to be. You were put here regardless of how it came to be, you were given a shot, a chance. You have a chance to find your purpose. It may not even be that. You have a chance to do what you love. You have a chance to exist, to live your life. And even if you don't believe in a God, you're not going to let that go to waste. Even if you're an atheist, you still would use your life. You wouldn't waste it. Because you only get one shot. You only get one chance to use it. If you mess up badly enough, that's it. That's it if you're an atheist. So, atheism as a whole, it restricts you a lot less than religion. You're free to do what you want. And oftentimes, this is dangerous. Many times, this can be viewed as deadly because doing what you want, humans as a whole, we're naturally not so nice, I'll just put it that way. Humans doing what they want can be dangerous. It can be deadly. And that oftentimes creates bad things, but it's free. Now, doing what you want frees you, sure, but what religion does, it confines you. But in doing so, religion protects humanity from people doing what they want. And this might sound like, are you sure you're an atheist? You're arguing for religion. Religion is good. Religion is a good thing. Because without it, then people will do whatever they want, which could be bad, like violence, murdering, etc., which religion tells you not to do. So atheism doesn't have any rules, doesn't have any regulations. You're free to do whatever. Religion gives rules, regulations. So atheism can be chaotic, but is what I believe to be true. Religion can be safe. It can help apprehend bad people. Religion controls people to better society. And regardless of your beliefs, if you're an atheist, if you don't believe in religion, religion is a great thing because it gives people a purpose, right? People don't want to look for one themselves. Religion grants it. It gives people a moral code to follow. It gives people a community. It gives people many things. And all these things together generally improve the world. Atheism is very dangerous, but it's more free. Now, another thing I want to talk about of why I believe in atheism, or why I don't believe in God. For us to exist, for us to be able to understand that we exist, to notice our existence, we have to exist. So, what I'm trying to put on the table here is for humans to exist, we need to be able to perceive our own existence. So, in other words, if we do not exist, we do not know we don't exist. Therefore, since we do not know we don't exist, we do not know we don't exist. We don't exist, we cannot perceive ourselves existing. Therefore, you wouldn't know if you didn't exist. So what I'm saying is, infinite things don't exist, and they don't know they don't exist. They cannot perceive it. Because to exist, you need to be able to perceive your own existence. So, before your existence, you didn't know you did not exist. You had no idea of anything until you existed. Once you existed, You knew you existed. You were able to perceive your own existence. So, in a sense, the only way you can exist is by existing. This may make no sense, but existence is guaranteed. Because if you didn't exist, you wouldn't be able to perceive your your existence. So, by not existing, you cannot know you don't exist. Therefore, existing is the only way to know you exist. Therefore, since existing is the only way to know you exist, your existence is guaranteed. Now, I may have not made any sense there whatsoever, but I try my best. Basically, just you have to, if you don't understand, you have to trust me on this one. Existence is guaranteed because if we do not exist, we cannot perceive our existence. Now, what that means is for a God to create us, it wouldn't even be necessary for a God to create us because we would exist no matter what. We would exist no matter what. So, if our existence would come to be, no matter the circumstance, if our existence would come to be, if it was guaranteed, a God wouldn't be necessary to create us. Now, this is a difficult jump, but over enough time, with the laws of physics, and you say, oh, who created the laws of physics? Right? Over enough time, the laws of physics, even if they were different, in laws of physics, let's say they can somehow change over enough time, who knows what's going on? Over enough instances, infinite instances, eventually you get the perfect set, the perfect laws of physics that would allow for existence, the perfect set of circumstances that create the existence, and eventually you would have existence. Boom, the universe, whatever. The universe would become. And then eventually, over a long enough duration of time, your consciousness would arise and you'd be able to perceive your existence. In all those other instances, you never existed. So therefore, since you never existed, you never be able to know you didn't exist. So in turn, you'd only exist once. Or scratch that. You'd only exist when you perceived it, which is this existence we're living in. These laws of physics we have, whatever, I can drop something, right, falls at whatever rate, 9.8, whatever, something, and all these other silly laws of physics. They all exist, and we can recognize that. So, to sum it all up, your existence doesn't require a purpose to exist. First thing I talked about. Second thing, what was it? Okay, come back to it. The third thing, existence is guaranteed because if you don't exist, you don't know you don't exist. And last thing, what the hell was it? What did I say? I think that was it. So that's why I don't believe in God. If you agree or disagree, please tell me why in the comments. I'm very open for anything. I'd love to talk about it more. Yeah, I'm very open for any comments, anything. Anyway, my name is Wanquo. Thank you so much for watching. If you get this far, if you saw this far into the video, then you must really like hear me talk. But also, could you please drop a like, and if you like what I said, or even if you disagree with what I said, I very much appreciate if you subscribed. Anyway, thank you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.